Hi guys. So yeah, this is week 6 over here. We're going to be focusing on the amendments to the Constitution, which, as you know, are a change in the Constitution. So this lecture is mostly going to be about the Bill of Rights and the total 27 amendments that make up all the changes that have been added on to our Constitution over time. So I'm going to run through all the amendments with you, and then you're going to do a follow-up assignment with these amendments over the next 4 days later this week. And also, after this lecture, be sure to respond to the brief discussion about the Bill of Rights. You're also going to have a chance to play a fun game this week related to the amendments. It's a game called Do I Have the Right? And it will be entertaining. Let's just say that. So, without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. So, we have the amendments. An amendment is literally mending the Constitution, a change. There are 27 total amendments in our glorious, wonderful Constitution, and the first 10 are always called the Bill of Rights, which protects individual rights and limits government powers. You may remember that the Federalists and the Anti-Federalists, this is one of the big things. Federalists had to promise a Bill of Rights in order to get the Constitution ratified, and the first 10 amendments became known as the Bill of Rights. So let's run through these quick here. Go through that. Make sure you guys are taking notes. So the First Amendment protects the rights of Americans to worship as they please, protects their freedom of speech, freedom of press. It also protects their right to hold, assemble, and demonstrate, and protest, and petition their government. So the First Amendment actually is one amendment that protects 5 of your most essential freedoms. There's a couple amendments like that do more than one thing. This is one of them, and this is one of the biggest ones that everybody knows. So make sure that you write this down, you pay attention. There's a lot to learn about the First Amendment. Tons of Supreme Court cases, tons of deep questions to learn about. Maybe you'll be lucky enough to have the First Amendment for your project. Second Amendment, long story short, is the right to bear arms. Own guns and use them to protect yourself. We have a long history, obviously, of using guns to protect ourselves, going all the way back to the Revolution. We couldn't have beat the British without them. And so it's not uncommon that when the Founding Fathers wanted a Bill of Rights, that they wanted to include your right to bear arms in there. The Third Amendment protects you from having to quarter soldiers, which you may remember when I was talking about the Declaration of Independence, and I had told you to pay attention to them being mad about the British quartering troops in their homes, basically letting them live in there and live off their money and food. They were mad enough to actually put this in the Constitution as something that can never be done. Literally forbidding people from ever quartering troops inside another American's home. And thus I have this picture of random soldiers sleeping. The Fourth Amendment is another one of those things it's a little bit of a couple of protections. Limits the government's power to conduct searches and seizures, protecting your right to privacy. To be a lawful search, you need to have one of two things. Probable cause, which means you see a crime happening with your 2 little pupils, and you can go in there and do something about it. Or a warrant, which is given to you by a judge based on reasonable evidence that there's a crime being committed. You need warrants for homes and cars and all property and barns and sheds, all sorts of things you need a warrant for to search. The Fifth Amendment. The Fifth Amendment contains 4 protections. Like the First Amendment, it has multiple different things. The first one is no one can be tried for a serious crime unless a grand jury decided there is enough evidence to justify a trial. So basically, they get 12 random people. They collect a bunch of evidence, and they say, is there enough to press charges or have a trial on this case? Second, a person found innocent may not be tried again for the same offense. So they call that double jeopardy. So if I'm an axe murderer, and somehow I defend myself in a court of law, and I get off, I've been declared not guilty, and I, in theory, cannot be tried again for the same crime. Third, no one may be forced to testify against him or herself. So you have the right to remain silent, as they say. If I'm the axe murderer, again, on the stand, and somebody looks me in the eye and says, hey, did you kill that person with the axe? And I say, I plead the Fifth, I'm totally allowed to do that, and then I'm definitely going to be convicted. But that's the way it works. All right? Fourth, no one can be deprived of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. If that sounds familiar, you're right. It's in the Declaration of Independence, and they felt strongly enough to put it right in the Constitution. gives Americans the right. The Sixth Amendment gives the Americans the right to a fair and speedy trial by an impartial jury. What we mean by that is a fair jury, right? A random group of people from the community that have no influence on the case, no influence on the crime, and they will make a fair judgment of whether or not you're innocent or guilty. Also, you have the right to know the charges against you. You can't simply be arrested and then they lock you away and throw away the key and never see you again, except when they bring you bread and water. It doesn't work like that here. The Seventh Amendment, oh, the Seventh, gives you the right to sue people. Sounds American, doesn't it? You can sue for all property worth $20 or more. Isn't that nice? Look at Andrew Jackson on there. Is he even still on the $20 bill? I thought they were going to change that. Is there like a news update? Feel free to email me. Anyways, the Eighth Amendment. The amendment prohibits excessive bail, also cruel and unusual punishment. But essentially, I can't steal a gallon of milk from the grocery store and then be arrested and put on a $5 billion bail, right? It has to be reasonable. So I shouldn't have a bail at all, and I should spend like a weekend in jail if I steal a gallon of milk from the store. The Ninth Amendment states that any rights not spelled out in the Constitution are to be retained by the people. Us. So basically, if we forgot to put anything in here, we're just going to add this on the end to protect us. Then you have the 10th Amendment, which doesn't particularly protect the rights of an individual, but actually technically protects the rights of state governments. Basically says anything not in the Constitution, like not any powers given to the federal government, are powers that belong to the state government. Obviously, those are the first 10, known as the Bill of Rights. But we have 27 other amendments. Let's go through them all quickly here. All right. In 1795, we created the 11th Amendment. It was added to prevent another state from being sued in federal court by citizens of another state. Sounds weird, but there was a whole big Supreme Court case about this. So if I live in the state of Ohio, I cannot hypothetically sue the state of Indiana because I'm not a resident nor a citizen. The 12th Amendment protected a problem in how the president and vice president were elected. You see, it used to be whoever finished second place used to get to be the lucky winner of the vice presidency. However, this led to some problems. Could you imagine if Donald Trump and Hillary Clinton had to work together? That happened, but like in an 1800s way. It was not good. 13th, 14th, and 15th Amendments are known as the Civil War Amendments because they were all created in the aftermath of the Civil War, mostly to provide newly freed men with some rights. They outlawed slavery, served to protect birthright citizenship, and prohibited anyone from denying someone the right to vote based on their race. All the amendments in the third group were added in the 20th century, aka the 1900s. We have not had an amendment in the 21st century. These amendments deal with a range of topics that reflect some of the changes that occurred in American society. Moving on up to the east side. All right, anyways. The 16th Amendment gives Congress the power to levy income taxes. Oh, the income tax, yes. The government didn't used to have power to take money straight from your paychecks, but now they do, because they need it, apparently. So they passed a whole amendment to give them the power to do so. 17th Amendment says that people, not state legislatures, elect U.S. senators directly. Obviously, if you've read the Constitution, which hopefully you have last week, you know that the 17th Amendment changed how the original Constitution is written. The 18th Amendment was an interesting idea where they tried to outlaw alcohol, specifically the manufacture, sale, or transportation of alcoholic beverages. The consumption of it was never technically illegal, but the buying of it was very difficult. The 19th Amendment guaranteed women the right to vote. Obviously, before the 19th Amendment, and I think 1920, only men who were 21 years of age could vote. The 20th Amendment sets new dates for when the president is inaugurated and Congress begins its term. It used to be in March, but they moved it to January. Long story short is it doesn't take people as long to travel to Washington, D.C., nor do they have to close up the farm anymore, so they just don't need as much time. The 21st Amendment repealed the stupid 18th Amendment. The 22nd limited the president to a maximum of 2 terms. Everybody was mad at FDR for some reason after he died. 23rd Amendment gave the District of Columbia 3 electoral votes. For those of you that don't know where the District of Columbia is, that is the technical name for Washington, D.C. And they used to not have any participation in the presidential election till we amended the Constitution and gave them 3 electoral votes in the presidential election. The 24th Amendment prohibits the poll tax in federal elections, and the 25th Amendment establishes a process for how the vice president will get to succeed the president if he should die. You see, there were some complications with that one. It was not stipulated it said if the president's gone, the vice president takes over, but they needed some more detail in the Constitution, like who succeeds the vice president? Does the president replace the vice president? Is the vice president merely acting as the president, or is the vice president the president himself? So there were some questions that needed to be answered, and they clarified it with that amendment. 26th Amendment, you can thank the Vietnam War, gave 18-year-olds the right to vote. And the 27th Amendment stipulated when the greedy congressmen can raise their pay. These are the 27 amendments of the Constitution. Good luck on your following assignments this week. I'm sure you'll do lovely. I look forward to seeing some of your quick presentations that you'll be making. If you guys have any questions, you guys can always email me at ksearcy@spartan.limacityschools.org. Good luck out there.